Hello AoE4 fans, welcome to the AoE4 Kingdom channel. Today we are diving deep into the Feudal Age and breaking down the economic value of every landmark. Stick around to find out which ones are the best. Let's get started. First up, the English Council Hall. This landmark essentially gives you two archery ranges, nothing more. That puts its base value at around 300 resources. Now let's look at the Abbey of the Kings. This one's more interesting. It lets you crown a king, with the first one being free. That's already 200 resource value. Plus, it provides healing. In a typical 10-minute game, you can easily expect over 1000 HP heal, which translates to roughly 1000 resources. So, the Abbey of Kings offers a total value of approximately 1200 resources over 10 minutes after construction. Now let's move on to the French and Jeanne d'Arc and their landmarks. First up, the Chamber of Commerce. This landmark functions as a market, trains free traders with each economic upgrade. Assuming a French player gets all Feudal Age upgrades and one Castle Age upgrade within the first 10 minutes of constructing this landmark, that means 8 economic upgrades. With each trader worth 220 resource, that's 960 resource from traders alone. Adding the base value of market, that's 100 resource, we get a total of 1060 resource gathered by Chamber of Commerce in those 10 minutes. Now we have the School of Cavalry. This landmark acts as a stable and provides 20% production speed boost to all stables. Its base value is 180 resource. Plus, it effectively adds 30 resources of value for each additional stable you build. If player builds 4 additional stables within 10 minutes, that's an extra 120 resources of value. Combined with the base value, the School of Cavalry provides about 300 resources of value in that time frame. Now let's analyze the Holy Roman Empire and the Aachen Chapel. Evaluating this landmark is tricky because it doesn't provide direct resources. However, it typically covers 16 to 25 villagers within the first 10 minutes. This is roughly equivalent of having 2 or 3 additional prelates. Let's assume 3 for this. To produce 2 additional prelates, you'd spend 200 gold and lose 2 villager production. This translates to resource loss of approximately 110 resources per minute. Over the 10 minutes, that's 1100 resources lost in the villager production, plus the 200 gold for the prelate, totaling around 1300 resource loss. So this landmark provides 1300 value over the first 10 minutes. Now let's talk about the often underused Mainboard Palace. This landmark functions as a blacksmith and provides 50% discount on all blacksmith technologies. If a player researches all Feudal Age upgrades, 2 Castle Age upgrades, and the Military Academy tech, they save 962.5 resources. Adding the base value of blacksmith 150 resource, the Mainboard Palace provides the total of 1112.5 resources over 10 minutes. Let's shift our focus to Order of the Dragon, and not very unique landmarks. We'll start with their version of Aachen Chapel. Unlike the HRE version, this Aachen Chapel buffs nearby villagers gathering there. Now, the game math shows this is an increase of 0.7 resource per second per villager. While it might sound small, it adds up. If we assume the chapel is effectively buffing 20 villagers for a 10-minute period, here's the math works. Each villager gets an extra 4.2 villagers per minute multiplied by 20 villagers, and we are looking at an extra 84 resources per minute. Over those 10 minutes, that adds up to approximately 840 resources. Next up, we have the Mainboard Palace. Just like the HRE counterpart, this landmark functions as blacksmith and provides 50% discount on all blacksmith technologies. Since we are not factoring in value of unique technologies for either civilization, the value of this landmark remains consistent. Therefore, the Order of Dragon main work palace also provides approximately 11-12.5 resource over 10-minute period, including the base value of blacksmith itself. So to recap, Aachen Chapel of Order of Dragon provides 840 resources over 10 minutes and the main work palace provides 12.5 resources over the 10 minutes. Now we see why main work palace is usually used in Order of the Dragon and not HRE.
First up, the Russia, with two interesting landmark options, the Kremlin and the Golden Gate. The Kremlin is a wooden fortress with pre-installed upgrades, giving it a base value of 375 resources. It also generates militia AU. To calculate their value, we'll assign each Kremlins a value of 50 resources, recognizing they're weaker than regular spearmen. Since each ticket costs 55 food, and the Kremlins are valued at 50 resources, each ticket effectively saves 45 resources. They spawn every 80 seconds, meaning a gain of approximately 34 resources per minute EAL. Over 10 minutes, that's 340 resources from Kremlins, plus the Kremlin's base 375, totaling 715 resources. The Golden Gate is simpler. It provides a trade cart every 50 seconds, each worth 50 resources. Over 10 minutes, that's 650 resources HOAA. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, Delhi Sultanate. Their landmarks offer some unique challenges in valuation. First, the Dome of the Faith acts as a mosque, giving it a base value of 100 resources. It also provides a 65 gold discount on monks. If a player continuously produces monks, that's a saving of 130 resources per minute EU. Over 10 minutes, this totals 1,300 resources saved, plus the mosque's base 100, for a total of 1,400 resources. This is the highest value landmark we've seen so far. The Tower of Victory is more difficult to quantify. We'll assume players primarily use it in the Feudal Age and produce 50 infantry units over 10 minutes. Each unit gets a 10% value increase, meaning 50 units effectively become 55. At a value of 80 resources per unit, that's an increase of 400 resources per unit. That's an increase of 400 resources.
Let's turn our attention to Ottoman and their landmarks. First up, the Twin Minute Madrasa. This landmark functions as a meal and generates berries, but let's focus on its resource generation. Through testing in a standard game scenario, I found that this landmark allows 4 villagers to gather approximately 40 to 54 more resources per minute than standard berries. For our calculation, let's use an average of 47.5 additional resources per minute. Over the 10 minutes is 475 resources generated. However, it's important to remember that the main strength of this landmark isn't necessarily the extra resources. It's the safe and centralized food source it provides directly under your town center. Now let's examine the Sultan Honey trade network. This landmark is a market that spawns 3 traders, giving me an immediate value of 460 resources. But the real value comes from the bonus gold generation. Each garrison trader generates 24 gold per minute. Since the landmark starts with 3 traders, that's 72 gold per minute. Now, in a real game, players will usually garrison more and more traders in this landmark, but for the purpose of evaluating landmark value will stick to the initial 3. Over the 10 minutes, these 3 traders generate 720 gold. Adding this to initial value of this landmark, we get a total of 1180 resources in 10 minutes. To summarize, 20 minute Madrasa, approximately 525 additional resources over 10 minutes, and Sultan Honey Trade Network approximately adds 1180 resources over 10 minutes. Now let's head to China and calculate its Imperial Academy landmark. The tax collection is a tricky thing to calculate, but I tested the game and over 10 minutes the building around the Imperial Academy generated 2300 gold. but half of this gold is the bonus resource from the landmark. So this landmark generates 1150 gold over 10 minutes. But this landmark can train additional imperial official for 45 resource less. So people usually train one imperial official out of their TC and the next 3 out of this landmark. So that means this landmark provides another 135 resource for this time frame. Next landmark is Barbican of the Sun. The base value of this landmark is 8 garrison slot and it's equal to 1.6 tower, which means 160 resource. And it has a emplacement. This emplacement has 75 resource value and this landmark has 5000 HP, so that means 345 outposts and that equals to 300 resource value. To summarize the numbers, Imperial Academy provides 1285 resource over 10 minutes and Barbican of the Sun give an immediate 535 resource value. Now let's check the Chinese variant Civ Jushi Legacy. Their first landmark is Meditation Garden. This landmark provides a steady stream of resource over time. From the testing, this landmark generates something between 60 to 120 resources per minute. So, to get a reasonable estimate, let's take a middle ground and that's 90 resource per minute. Over a 10-minute period, that adds up to a solid 900 resources. The second Jushi Legacy landmark is a bit more complex. Its main function is to spawn a unit according to the production building you create. If you make a barracks, you get an spear. If you make archer, you get an jugunu, and if you make a stable, you get a horseman. So let's check the typical real world scenario, and over 10 minutes, the Jushi Legacy player usually make 2 archery, 2 barracks, 2 stable, and mix and match of these things. So if we go with the number I said, 2 stable, 2 archery and 2 barracks, player get 2 horsemen, 2 jugunu and 2 spearmen, and that means 560 resource value. Now let's check another Asian civilization, Japanese. Their first landmark is Kuro Star House. The way Kuro Star House works is it generates a farm every 50 seconds. And after making 12 farms, it starts generating passive wood. 37.5 wood every 50 seconds. So that means it generates 45 wood every minute. This landmark also is a universal drop-off, but it usually can cover 2 resources. So we give it 100 resource value. And this landmark also can garrison 4 villagers, so we give an additional 40 resource to this capability. If we calculate all the values, this landmark generates 15 resource over 10 minutes. Next up we have the Coco Township, and this landmark produces shinobi. This landmark provides a free initial shinobi which normally costs 100 resource. It also functions as a production building which will value at 50 resource. Now, shinobi are incredibly powerful and versatile unit, and their actual combat effectiveness is worth more than the base cost. For the purpose of analysis, we'll value them at 130 resource to reflect their strength. That means for each shinobi you produce out of Coco Township, you effectively saving 30 resource. The Coco Township can produce up to 3 shinobi per minute. That's a potential saving of 90 resource per minute. Over 10-minute continuous production, this amounts to 900 resource saved. Adding the initial shinobi and the value of production of this landmark, that means we get a total of 1080 resource over 10 minutes. Next civilization, Byzantine. The Grand Binary is a combination of mill and monastery, giving it a base value of 250 resources. It boosts the oil production by 60%, turning 750 oil from the initial berries into 1200. That's a gain of 450 resources. After the berries are exhausted, players usually tend to fill around Grand binary with farms. Let's say player make 12 farm after the exhaustion of berries. That means over the 10 minutes they can collect another 600 oil from the farm. But it's only 225 of that is attributed to the landmark bonus. So focusing on the first 10 minutes, we are looking at the total oil increase of 675 resources. Adding it to the base value of 250, grand binary total value is 925 resources over the 10 minutes. Now let's look at the hippodrome. It's a stable, it also has a base value of 150 resources, it also grants the triumph ability. If we say each ticket is worth 20 resources, we get 200 upon construction and 48 every minute. Over 10 minutes, that's 480 resources from triumph. Adding the stable base value of 350, we get total of 830 resource value out of this landmark. So to sum up everything about Byzantine, Grand Binary provides 925 resource over 10 minutes and Hippodrome provides 830 resource over 10 minutes. Next civilization, the Malians. Let's start with Mansa Quarry. Mansa Quarry is the simplest landmark to calculate. It provides a flat 75 gold or stone per minute, so over 10 minutes it provides 750 resources, simple as that. Now let's take a look at Saharan Trade Network. This landmark is a bit more complex. It essentially a tower with 10 garrison slot which will value at 200. It also has an emplacement adding another 75 resource and with that high HP will give it the value of 3 fortification adding 300 resources. That brings the total value of this landmark to 575 resources. The Saharan Trade Network also was taxation. However, pulling off the consistent trend in early game can be challenging. And since we are only focusing for the first 10-minute value of their landmark, we'll exclude the trade bonus from our calculation. Next civilization, Mongol. The deer stone from my testing increased the villager efficiency by about 3%. After 5 minutes of constructing the landmark, a typical Mongol parade will have around 34 villagers. With a base gather rate of 40 resources per villager per minute, the deer stone boosts that to 41. That's only a gain of 1 resource per villager per minute, or 34 resources per minute across all villagers. Over 10 minutes, that's a total of 340 resources. It's important to note that you are also getting a technology worth 360 resources, faster infantry movement around towers in Feudal Age, and Fun Hunter. While we are primarily focusing on resource generation, that other benefits add a significant value to the deer stone. Next, we have the silver tree. Packing and unpacking takes about 2 minutes, but we are calculating the value of over 10 minute period. First off, it's a market, we'll give it a base value of 100 resources. The silver tree can produce almost 3 traders per minute. Making a trader from this landmark is 24 gold cheaper, which translates to saving of 24 resources per trader with almost 3 traders per minute. That's saving of approximately 69 resources per minute. Over 10 minutes, this generates 609. Now let's move on to the Ayyubids. Their unique wing system makes calculating landmark value a bit different, but we'll break it down wing by wing. Let's look at the economic thing, industry. This is the simplest one. It provides a flat 350 resource, is straightforward and easy to calculate. But what about growth wing? This wing grants 3 villagers worth 150 resources. They also gather an extra 40 resources per minute each, so that's 120 resources per minute from the extra villager. Over 10 minutes, that's 1200 resources from gathering alone plus the initial 150 resources per villager, totaling 13 resources. So now we see why no one takes the industry and everyone takes the growth wing if they are choosing an economic wing for Feudal Age. Next, we have the military wing and reinforcement wing. This spawns a desert raider every 2 minutes. Each raider costs 180 resources, which means 90 resources per minute. Since one raider spawns after 15 seconds after the completion of this landmark, we are looking at 900 resources from spawn over 10 minutes plus the initial raider worth 180 resources for a total of 1080 resources. Next ring, Master Smith. This grants all four blacksmith technologies worth 700 resources. A quick comparison shows why this ring isn't often picked compared to others. Now let's move on to the culture ring advancement. This provides 250 resources. While not a huge resource gain, its value lies on the tempo advantage it provides, which is harder to calculate. Logistics. This spawns two dervishes worth 200 resources each, for the total of 400 resources. They also provide permanent AoE healing, and estimated a good player can heal up to 1000 HP over 10 minutes with these two dervishes. And we value that 1000 HP, 1000 resources. This gives the logistic a total value of 1400 resources. Finally, let's look at trade wing, and first option is advisor. They increase unit HP by 20%, which will value at a 10% increase per unit. If an Ayyubid player makes 40 units with an average cost of 140 resources over the 10 minutes, that's a 560 resource gain. And the advisors, each of them cost 200 resources. So player gets 3 advisors upon completion, that's a total of 600 resources. That provides a total value of 1160. Lastly, we have the bazaar. It generates 4 tickets every 3 minutes, which is roughly 16 tickets over 10 minutes. If we assume 8 are resource tickets, 25 resource worth each, 2 are trader tickets, 10 resource worth each, and 6 are unit tickets, 90 resource worth each. That's a total of 760 resources. Now let's summarize everything about Ayyubids. Economic wing industry generates 350 resource, growth wing 1350 resource, military wing reinforcement 1080 resource, master smith 700 resource, culture wing advancement 250 resource, logistic 1400 resource, advisors 1160 resource, bazaar 760 resource. Finally, we arrive at the Abbasid dynasty and their wing system, like the Ayyubids. Present some unique challenges for calculating values, but with some testing and assumption we can get a reasonable estimate. Let's start with economic wing. Our approach here is focused on resource saving from cheaper building and extra town centers. We are assuming a 3 town center strategy and calculating that over the 10 minutes. It's important to note that this calculation doesn't account for the time saved by constructing a cheaper building, which is significant advantage in itself. The actual value of this wing is likely higher. Here is the breakdown. 2 cheaper town centers cost 525 resource tickets each for a total of 450 resources. Let's say player builds 8 houses, 4 lumber camps, and 4 mills with a 50 resource saved on each of these. That's another 240 resource saved. If we also include 20 farms in the calculation, with each farm and saving 22 resources, that's an additional 550 resources. Adding all of these together, the economic wing saves us a minimum of 1240 resources over 10 minutes. Now let's move on to the military wing. This wing provides 2 archers and 2 spearmen, and they worth total of 320 resources. The boot camp bonus is roughly 8% of its unit value. If an Abbasid player produces 40 infantry units over 10 minutes, and with average cost of 84 each, because in Feudal Age we only have spearmen and archers. And that's a total increased value of 256 resources. Adding this to the initial unit gives us a total value of 576 resources for the military wing. Next up is the culture wing. This wing makes the upgrade cheaper, which is a huge advantage in terms of tempo and getting the crucial technologies early. This upgrade is hard to calculate the value, but we will try our best. In our scenario, the player gets all economic takes except the professional start, roughly half of the military takes, I mean blacksmith, and then goes to castle age. This results us saving 610 resources. Finally, we have the trade wing. This wing spawns tier traders upon aging up. The Feudal Age upgrade for this wing doesn't provide any additional economic advantage in terms of resource generation. So the only resource value we are considering here is the initial tree traders, which is 240 resources for Abbasids because Abbasids has the cheaper traders. This makes it the weakest wing for Feudal Age in terms of direct resource gain. So to summarize everything, economic wing provides 1240 resource save over 10 minutes, military wing 576 resource, culture wing 610, trade wing 240 resources. Alright, we covered a lot of ground today, analyzing the economic value of every feudal age landmark in Age of Empires 4. Now let's bring everything together and have a quick recap. Here is the chart for looking at every landmark I calculated today. So that wraps up our in-depth look at economic value of feudal age landmarks in Age of Empires 4. I hope this video has been helpful and given you some insight into how evaluate these crucial buildings. Remember, these are estimated based on specific scenarios and calculation, and the actual value can vary in the game. Let me know in the comment which landmark you think is the most underrated or overrated. Don't forget to like this video if you found it helpful. Subscribe for more Age of Empires 4 content. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.